I think that feminine return to sovereignty is crucial. It's a whole different, like, we're talking about a different paradigm. Like, and I am invested in women who want to live into that new paradigm. I think that we are it. I always talk about, like, I think the answers to where we're going are inside of women who are remembering who they are. I don't know if I can say that on your podcast. And, shifting the energetics. Like, we are talking about a different energetic situation when we really start to do this. So I just stopped looking to, like, I know that we need harmony. I know that we need union. We need relationships, right? But my feminine had to get clear and sovereign, really, so that I can be that and teach others, right?
Welcome to Hopeful and Wholesome, the show where ambitious women come home to their bodies. I'm your host, Hope Pedraza, and I'm a functional practitioner, human design guide, and expert on all things energy, and your partner in decoding the language of your body. This is your space to reconnect with your body's wisdom, reclaim your energy, and rise into alignment in your health, your business, and your life. Because thriving isn't about pushing harder, it's about learning to listen deeper. So let's dive in because your next breakthrough starts right now. Hey y'all, welcome back to the show. Today I have on the show my friend Sarah Poet, and Sarah is a truth seeker, a thought leader, and a medicine woman for modern times. And her mission is to assist women and men as we awaken to the imbalances of feminine and masculine energy and to help bridge humanity from separation to connection. She's the host of the Sacred Remembering podcast and community, which I encourage you to go listen and download because we also have an episode together over there. And this community of hers serves to bolster women's sovereignty, inherent value, and prosperity through leading edge energetics. Sarah directly serves couples, individuals, and organizations as a deeply healing coaching consultant. And today we are talking all about feminine and masculine energy in the deepest possible way. And while a lot of Sarah's community is women, she has a really unique perspective because she does work with couples and she does work with men, and she goes in organizations and corporations to talk about this as well. So she has a really unique perspective from both sides. And when we talk about feminine and masculine energy, we're not talking about gendered. These are just two sides of the energy spectrum. And she really bridges the gap here and helps us and kind of brings that down to earth to help us understand that on a body level and a soul level, and how we can best integrate both of these, the masculine and the feminine, to help us on our own personal growth journey and our spiritual journey and our emotional energetic journey. So Sarah has a lot to share with us here, and we're going to go deep into this conversation. And I think that there's nuggets for everybody here, no matter where you are on your personal path. So let's jump in. All right, y'all, let's jump in. I'm here with Sarah. Thank you so much for joining us today, Sarah.
It's good to be here. Hello, everyone.
I'm excited. So I had the honor of being on Sarah's podcast, and now here she is on this podcast. And so I'm excited to bring her expertise in here for y'all. And Sarah, I really want to just jump right in because this conversation, I feel like, and I can say this, I feel like in the world of entrepreneurship and online business, it's just like, you sometimes feel like we're in a bubble. So I hear about this all the time. I've, been diving into it for a while, but it's not something that everybody is familiar with, but the idea of feminine versus masculine energy. And I would love for you, because the other thing is there's a lot of different takes on this, right? There's a lot of different perspectives on this. So I would love to hear your perspective and your explanation, how you would explain the feminine versus masculine energy to us.
That's such a huge question. And I feel like I could talk about it forever.
Oh, sure. Yes.
In entrepreneurship, it was literally like the first 4 to 5 years of my business. It was everything I talked about. And it was also like my spiritual path. Like, it's a very practical path, but it's also a very spiritual path. So I'm actually going to start with a story that maybe your listeners will relate to, which is, and I tell this story somewhat, I tell a version of this in my TEDx. So I encourage people, if they're interested in feminine and masculine, archetypes really for the modern woman. Like that's really where I focus. Please watch my TEDx because I tell the story of discovering this and remembering my feminine. I came from a career in education. So I climbed the career ladder because I was a mother and I had already, I'd gotten a degree in education, a master's degree. And then I was like, okay, I need to make more money. What am I going to do? So I went back and got another degree and I became a school leader. So I adopted, and my mother was actually a school leader, but I was always like in the total alternative spaces, like trying to do everything differently, story of my life. But I had done this like high achieving thing. And that message came from my parents, from my mother, like, you've got to push yourself. I actually lost a child to adoption when I was 18 years old because the story culturally was like, well, you're not ready yet. You can't do this yet because you haven't like succeeded enough. And so I just friggin' tried like hell to make something of my life and amassed a couple of degrees, because I really just wanted to get back to the place where I was like mom enough or woman enough or, like worthy enough to actually have the family and do what I wanted to do. And I was in a relationship with my now ex-husband, where I was pulling way more weight than he was. As a mother, as a breastfeeding working mother, it was exhausting. I was the one that was up during the night. I was, doing freaking everything like women do. And I had, I'm going to say an awakening, but I call it remembering. Like my podcast is called Sacred Remembering. So my son was a toddler and he was like playing in the sun. I literally remember the moment. It was like a clouds parting, sun coming through kind of moment. And I was like, wait, I left something of myself back there. And that to me was the awakening of this concept of the feminine and like, what is the feminine? Like, what about this life that we live in the modern world has the sacred feminine in it? Because I didn't feel valued. I was definitely overworked. My energy was really low, but my adrenals were taxed from a very early age. Yeah. And then I had climbed this career ladder, and I tell this story in the TEDx also, but like my female supervisor, the super in administration was like, Sarah, you just make these like gut decisions. You just rely on your intuition. And I was relying on like a combination of things I knew professionally and my intuition as a woman, as a mother, as someone who really cares for children. And I was often right, but like it wasn't an acceptable way of making decisions. And I remember like walking down the school hallway one day after a meeting, just being so pissed off because I was like, yeah, I make decisions with intuition. I'm a woman, So I've definitely heard a lot of women over the years like that. The intuition it's like a gateway into feminine and masculine, right? Because there are these things that we long for as women, intuition being one of them. I mean, heck, having our energy valued, those kinds of things. So there was this awakening, and it really was like, I want to know the sacred feminine and sacred masculine. And I started with reading books by Jungian archetypes, or I'm sorry, Jungian psychologists, which I really recommend. Like Marion Woodman, she's deceased now, but she is an incredible author who has documented so much about the conscious feminine. And so that was the way that I entered this space, which is very different than internet land where you'll get this and that about what sacred feminine might mean, which is so dangerous in so many ways, to be honest, because it's like a free for all. And there's all this messaging about what the feminine is supposed to be and how she's supposed to be in relationship with the divine masculine. And I mean, it can get very contorted very quickly. So that archetypal space is really where I started. And the archetypal, it's like the energetics, right? Like, or the ways of behaving. So if I am deeply relying on something that I read in a book and my logic and 2 + 2, we could say that that's more masculine.
Hey, y'all, we'll get right back to the episode. But first, let me ask you this. You've built a vision that others admire. And you've built something that you're really proud of. But behind the scenes, your body feels like it's lagging behind. It just can't quite catch up to your brilliance and your mission that you have. That late night second wind, the foggy mornings, the hormone shifts, the endless push and forcing. You can't strategize your way out of that. And you already know you don't need more supplements. You don't need another supplement stack. You also don't need another side hustle disguised as self-care, because nobody wants to have their health as a side hustle. This is about recalibrating your entire ecosystem. And that's why I created the Quantum Reset, a premium 3-month high-touch healing experience for visionary women who are ready to feel as powerful in their bodies as they do in their business. Inside, we decode your nervous system, your minerals, your hormones. We read your labs like the sacred text that it is, so we have actual answers. And then we pair that with deep energetic recalibration, subconscious release. We use gene keys, we use human design, and true embodied healing. This isn't about fixing burnout, because that's not what we're doing here. This is about becoming the woman whose body is powerful, whose body is completely electric, whose energy, clarity, radiance finally matches the size of her mission. If you know your success isn't meant to cost you your vitality, and you're ready for a science-backed, spirit-led reset, then the Quantum Reset is your invitation. So check the link in the show notes or send me a message on Instagram, and let's bring your body back online with your brilliance. Now, let's get back to the show.
If I'm relying on my gnosis, Gnosis, my intuition, my cultivated wisdom, my experience as a woman and as a mother, that would be more feminine. Things like, things that get assigned to women as weakness, like emotional wisdom. I started this whole body of work over the years about naming the resources of the feminine. Because our culture, it's like some of the resources of the feminine people really want. Some of the resources of the feminine people will pay to exchange. And some, they're like, devalued, swept under the rug, or just taken for free, like all of this. So I actually really started naming that out with and for women and for myself, because I don't want to rely on society to tell me what about woman or feminine energy is like quote unquote valuable. Like that is up to me to remember. And really what I do in my work is I help women to name that value, to name some of these intangibles. And then, we become this living embodiment of what actually like quote unquote brings back the sacred feminine, this essence that was so, suppressed and oppressed throughout this thing called patriarchy. So yeah, I'll pause and let you.
No, that was so good. It was so
such
good.
a journey.
No, it is. No, I love it. And you brought so many great things forward. And it's so funny to hear the part of your story where another woman was kind of devaluing that, like listening to your intuition was a bad thing. That's crazy. But I think it does speak to everything you were just saying, that how this part, the sacred feminine, is the part that has been just generationally, culturally suppressed or devalued, in relation to masculine. I would love for you mentioned feminine resources, and I would love for you to explain what you mean by that and what kind of feminine resources that you are talking about.
Yeah, thanks for asking. I think I jumped there because I'm opening this annual container later in May called Resource, where like the question that I'll just pose right now, it's a really big question. It's like, if patriarchy had never existed, what would the feminine know about our abundance, our worth, our value? We wouldn't even be living in this paradigm, right?
Right.
So if you look outside at nature, like at the woods, and you go into the woods is going to teach you about right relationship. It's going to teach you about systems. It's going to teach you about, things like sustainability and conservatism and like what you can take and what you can't take from it in order for that living system to still be really viable. It's going to teach you about feminine and masculine, right? So I really like to talk about nature as I'm talking about women and remembrance. And a couple of years ago, my whole body of work just kind of went that way because I think that nature is holding this template that is undistorted, right? The patriarchy didn't convince nature to be like suppressive. That's not even a thing, right? Yeah. So human consciousness had this bug in it, this program of, somebody has power, somebody doesn't have power. Somebody has resources, somebody doesn't have resources. And by the way, that wasn't the masculine. Like the masculine does not do that. It's not man versus woman or masculine versus feminine. The thing that held the power, that took power, is not men and masculine. It was this like force. I'm going to call it a negative force, right? So this gendered paradigm, we really have to get smarter than it, right? And stop making men the enemy when we do want to do this reclamation work. It's a lot of healing that has to be done. But back to resources, it's like, what are we born with? So as a woman, I tracked it over the years. And another quick little story here, like how I came to this was because, I was on the internet, I was talking about feminine, masculine. I was like growing my business through organic social media. I was very loud, like in the world, less so now. And it attracted the attention of others. And I'm going to say specifically some men, right? Mm-hmm. And then there would be these invitations like, oh, do you want to, engage with this business partnership? Oh, do you want to engage with this creative partnership? Do you want to engage with this love relationship? So I would maybe decide and discern like which ones to be a part of. And then more than once, I was like left with less after they were done. Right? Like they would invite, like this one man, he was a boomer. He was a generation older than me. Mm-hmm. He wanted to like start this project. And I even moved there. Like I got a contract and I moved to property. We were going to start this like retreat business thing. And he always asked me for like emotional tending. Like he wanted to talk about the other women and how they didn't like him. And he had a wife, like he had a woman to talk to about this. Like that was not my job. I was supposed to be a program manager, right? But like when I set those boundaries and I had started to use some of this language by then, like you want to pay me for just my time, but then in my off time, you want to ask me to emotionally labor for you. Mm-hmm. That's not okay. Like unless that's a part of my job, we can write this into the agreement, right? Another one was like, he thought like time equals money, right? But he wanted me to like come in and be this creative force in his project. And I was like, you know what that means? That means when I'm walking my dog in the morning and I'm in my own energy, I'm also thinking about your project because I'm invested, because I'm a woman and I just invested my energy into making this go. So you don't just pay me by the hour. Like, no way. You pay me by the project or, by like an agreement. Right. And I eventually like lost the job and the housing like very shortly afterwards because it just could not compute for him. So I started to track like, what are people asking for, but not valuing? And then I came up with the 8 feminine resources, like at the core of it, whether or not people will pay for it, whether or not anybody else knows how valuable it is. I have inherently these 8 feminine resources, these categories of resources. And I've named some of them, like time, attention, my emotional, like energy, my love. That's a resource. My gnosis, my wisdom, like that feminine way of knowing that is not a masculine way of knowing. That's a resource. The world's going to start paying for that. Mark my words.
Yeah.
Right. Like some healers get paid for that. Like I do get paid for that, but like, you know, it's called like healing session or coaching. Right. But I'm using those capacities. So my whole thing is like, we have to know those resources, respect them ourselves, and look at, well, like, where do we give them away? So if we're like mad about men or disrespect or patriarchy or all the like, well, he's not valuing my, it's like, well, how did you treat your own body today? How did you treat your own life force? Like, did you consume 3 cups of coffee in order to hammer yourself through the day? And like, you know, that's not respecting your feminine energy. That's like bullying your own body into submission, you know? So this thing that we conceive as externalized, these systems of oppression or the man or those kinds of things, like we actually really, we benefit so much as women when we evaluate our own relationship with our feminine resources. And then when that is good and clear and sovereign, like look out world, we're changing paradigms.
That makes total sense.
Yeah, that's the best thing I know for how to actually change a paradigm.
Yeah. Well, I think the resources you just talked about, I mean, I think that is like that alone for me, listening to that is such a good explanation of what feminine energy is. Like that's the aspects. Because I think sometimes it's, you know, distinguishing between the two. Like I said, everybody has their own perspective on this and you hear a million different perspectives. I'm with you. I feel like it's just like the Wild West out there talking about feminine, masculine energy. And a lot of times I'm reading stuff and I'm like, I am not the expert like you are, but even I know like this is not right. But there's a gal. Yes, I would love to, because I had that question in my head. But this gal I followed, it's so much of what you're saying and the way she explained it. And I think she said kind of what you were just saying, how there's this damn the patriarchy, blah, blah, all this stuff, when really a lot of this comes from what you were just talking about, our own relationship with the feminine. It's not all like blame men and it's all the masculine's fault. It's also this, I think it goes back to your sacred remembering. It's us losing that connection with our own feminine and our relationship with that part. I think that's such a big piece of it. Not to saying the patriarchy hasn't done things to suppress it. But I also do think that there's this disconnection where I think it's a lack of understanding. And it is just kind of this, what's the word I can't think of the word I want to say, but it's just kind of this forgotten piece of us, I think, and just culturally and societally has just been kind of shoved down. But I would love for you, because as another question I had for you was that this kind of maybe the big misconceptions and why there is kind of there's vastly different perspective on feminine versus masculine. Yeah, I'd love to hear you.
Yeah. Awesome. I'm going to sneak in one little thought before I go into that. So when women notice that something's wrong, which is like, there's a lot of that in the world right now, right? We go into fight mode and bless us. Like we are warriors. We are mama bears. We are like women who are pissed off about all that has been. We don't want to be silent anymore. Like all of these things, right? We don't want to ask for permission. The moment that we go into fight, we are in opposition energy. That's actually where they've got us. We're not helping our cause if we are in opposition. Okay, so now the bigger picture. And like I said, this is also, there's like the 3D, there's the, like the third dimension that we live in, the physical world that we can see. There are human behaviors. There are these archetypes that we can talk about, right? And then this is actually a multidimensional reality. We all have aspects of a multidimensional energetic energy body that connects to the rest of life. So that system of, again, nature is really what that is. It's built in feminine and masculine harmony. So anything that comes in and creates division and separation, which we experience a lot on Earth at this time, that is evidence of, I would say, something that is anti-life, something that is infiltrated into the collective consciousness that is not actually for thriving life. I started to discover or remember some of these things because, like, I was a woman who was pissed.
Mm-hmm.
I was, I lost my child at a young age. I was abused by my father. And I say that so that the women listening who were abused by their fathers know that it's okay to say those things and it's okay to, walk that walk of reclaiming your power from things like that. So I had a host of trauma with the masculine, with men and masculine. I had a husband that would not wake up and help with the baby. I had, then I had divorce. Then I had so I had masculine trauma all over the place, or masculine related trauma. But I'm also the mother of a son. And I was reclaiming feminine in that awakening. It was very clear to me from the start that it was my responsibility to also heal my relationship with the masculine. I mean, at the most basic level, so that I didn't look at my son and resent men or parent him with that inside of me. And any time, again, these traumas, they cause separation. And that was the point of this dark negative force. So we have to be stronger than that. We have to be like love bound, right? Mm-hmm. We have to be like love questing. So the reason that I can't remember the exact question, but like for the distortions in society about, well, what's feminine, what's masculine, we all have our projections. And by projections, I mean like the ways we start thinking when the stuff happened. So I'll give some examples here. So if your father was unsafe, but also controlled the money in the house, that was the situation for me, right? Then like you're feminine or your life as a woman, you might not feel empowered to go get your own money. You might think that you need a man in order to provide for you because you have no concept of like what it is like to actually create your own wealth and resources, So the parents are the first imprints of masculine and feminine. Like your mother is your first imprint of the feminine. Your father is your first imprint of the masculine. We all obviously have both of these archetypes within us, but just hang with me here. So those imprints are very strong in our psyches, very important. I would say it's part of our soul's quest to like heal that. Like what I've had to heal in relation with my father has been so much a part of my life's work. Like it's partly made me who I am, right? So I think that we do have this like soul curriculum that we're meant to walk. And this weaving of the healing of feminine and masculine is on that. But as far as like internet teachers, self-proclaimed internet teachers of feminine and masculine, and I'm totally one of them, every single human has our own traumas related to the physical human experiences of feminine and masculine. So this projection can come out in people's teachings. So you'll hear, and I do think that I've cleaned mine up quite a bit. Like I trust my integrity and I'm still human, very much human and very much imperfect. So you'll see women, I hope this is still not happening, but this was a lot a couple of years ago. Like women with father issues would project them onto God. And there was one woman, bless her, she would say, Sky Daddy gives me everything I need. And her whole thing was like calling the masculine or calling the Holy Father, like the masculine aspect of creation, Sky Daddy. And then her whole, I feel like it's maybe not okay that I'm talking about someone else here, but this could be anyone. I'm sure she's not the only one.
This is true.
And, or we might say, someone says, well, what is feminine? Well, what is masculine?
Right.
And if I have a father wound where my father did not provide for me, I might be thinking, well, the masculine, that's what the good masculine does. Right? Because it comes from the shadow projecting out into me saying the masculine is this or is that. And a lot of the time it's what people hope it is.
Right.
Based on the unresolved trauma.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Yeah. And of course, if you're projecting our own stuff onto that, there's a lot of distortion there, which makes complete sense, which is also where I think I think a lot of our own, I just think it puts a lot of confusion around like our own connection to our own feminine, like, and kind of, I just think that there's a lot there. What do you see as there, I do feel like there's a shift, right? Where I think more and more people are becoming aware and awakened to the, feminine, masculine, divine masculine, whether or not they're using that terminology. I think we're just more aware of those energies. Where do you see as the biggest areas for, I think growth is the word that I want to use, like where the direction that we're heading to provide more peace maybe, and like co-creation. I think that's the biggest thing. And that's what the gal I was mentioning before. That was the big thing I saw. She might have commented on another post, but somebody was basically saying like, oh, the masculine is what leads the feminine. And she's like, no. This is a co-creation process. Like, this isn't like a hierarchy thing, like one is in front or above, but it's like a co-creation. And I think, again, to your point about the distortions in our own projections of that. But as we are becoming more aware of these distinct energies, feminine and masculine, where do you see as kind of bridging that gap and providing more like of that idea of co-creation versus like, the hierarchy or the like resistance or that's me versus them?
Yeah, great question. I'll just be honest and say that I had a period of like going back into severe PTSD like response that I didn't expect. It was interdimensional. It was crazy. My soul was figuring some shit out. But that was like 2-3 years ago where this like flare up happened that was really very extractive, where my resources were not being respected. And I was like, hold the phone. Like, and I pulled back from doing a lot of relating and a lot of men's work. Like I used to do a lot of men's work. I worked with a lot of men and I still do if they come to me. That's when I really started talking about feminine resources. So my work, I'm going to answer this a couple different ways. I think that feminine return to sovereignty is crucial. It's a whole different, like, we're talking about a different paradigm. Like, and I am invested in women who want to live into that new paradigm. I think that we are it. I always talk about, like, I think the answers to where we're going are inside of women who are remembering who they are. I don't know if I can say that on your podcast. And, shifting the energetics. Like, we are talking about a different energetic situation when we really start to do this. So I just stopped looking to, like, I know that we need harmony. I know that we need union. We need relationships, right? But my feminine had to get clear and sovereign, really, so that I can be that and teach others, right? Because I live in Asheville, North Carolina. You think we have some spiritual boys here? We do. Do you think that they like to tell me about how the world works? They do. I don't have, like, I'm sorry, I know how I sound right now. I can't with that.
No, I'm with you, girl.
Because I have cultivated my feminine gnosis. Yeah. Because I can sit down and go into meditation and feel these essences of the earth, these new earth frequencies. I channel them. It's what I call the regenerative feminine. If a man wants to join a circle like that and learn, be my guest. That is happening a little bit. But I will not get heady spiritual discussing things with men. Like, I want to be in the experience, right? So for me, I'm looking for evidence of men being ready. I'm looking for true honoring of the feminine. Many men are not there yet. Some are getting close, but I feel like it's all been in divine time and preparation. So another topic that I just alluded to is that I do read earth energetics. And what's crazy cool is that just like humans have an energy body, like if you go to the acupuncturist and there's like a whole thing of meridians, like a poster on the wall showing you the meridians, right? There's these different models for human energy body, right? The earth also has an energy body. And the earth's energy body was tampered with. The feminine was actually siphoned within the earth. So this is another reason that we feel it in our human bodies. And we are reclaiming and recovering together. So, I mean, it's the most important work. This is where I am most of the time right now. So the women's bodies and the earth body heal in tandem. Like we're literally like, as you take your power back, the earth takes its power back and vice versa. And that is so cool to realize. Relationally, I have concepts and ideas about this. So I walk couples through a trauma-informed coaching process where if you have a trauma that loops in your relationship or you have an issue that loops in your relationship, there's a trauma underneath it. So I do a somatic trauma-informed body-based coaching that helps people to actually connect again without a lot of words. Because in these conflicts that have existed from the macro to the micro, we like want to talk it out. And I'm like, so where I am in my own feminine experience, which is also what I was just mentioning, like my feminine knows things by sitting in silence, breathing, being in my body, paying attention to what my body is doing. And my body is going to let me know if I want to advance towards something or if I don't feel that it's safe to do that, right? So I teach that and kind of getting out of that cognitive discussion sort of space and into the felt experience of the body while relating. And the last answer that I'll give to your question, no one has ever hired me to do this. So listeners, if you need this in your workplace, hi, I'm Sarah Poet, and I want to do this.
Put it out there.
So this has been on my website for like over 2 years, like organizational consulting, because women are leaving the workplace. There are so many gender issues in the workplace. People do not know how to talk about them. People are hurt and traumatized as shit goes down that like it could have been way better if HR had more skills, right? So I have programs that I have written for leaders, for HR professionals, where we can talk about values. Now, we can talk about feminine and masculine if and when people are ready for it. But I think the inroad is probably values, right? But our modern workplaces valued certain attributes, characteristics based on like pretty much the Industrial Revolution, right? So how men worked in the workplace prior to women, like collectively sort of set the stage, right? Then women like climbed ladders, tried to fit into that. We got this trauma in our bodies. We got this oppositional thing in the culture and like things are exploding and people are putting Band-Aids on it. It's such a mess. But if we started to talk about values and incorporated some of these more quote unquote feminine values, like intuition, like I think some of the more progressive sort of companies are doing things like free open creative time, right? Like unstructured time is a way more feminine kind of component of being because like you go deep to excavate what wants to actually be created versus like just productivity. So that thing, my working hypothesis is that would really help people to just look at men and women differently. Like we all have deep creativity inside of us and we all have crazy logic inside of us, like crazy in like meaning a lot of logic. Right. So I'm not just saying that like women are feminine, men are masculine. And if this were presented in this way, I think everyone could see like all of these are available to all of us, and we actually value them all in the workplace.
Yeah.
So it's not a gender thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I love that. Just seeing the value in both. And I think that's the big thing. I think that's the opportunity for us, for all of us, is understanding it and having that deep understanding of valuing both. And yeah, I think this is such a good conversation. I mean, I could talk for another like 3 hours on this. This is such a good conversation.
Whoa, this is not my intro topic.
Yeah, no, this is so good. And to be fair with everyone's time, we will call that the wrap this one up, because I could talk for another hours. But I love this conversation. And you mentioned you have a TEDx talk about this. And can you just let everybody know where they can find out more about you? Obviously, the link that Sarah was talking about, the link to the TEDx will be in the show notes. But anywhere else they can find out about you, everything you're talking about, the programs, like we just put it out there, like who wants to bring Sarah in to help their team out and then their corporate office, like, okay, where else can we find you?
Yes. At sarahpoet.com, SARAHPOET. Yeah, everything's there. I'm really using the website more and more like a hub. Like I don't want to be on all the social medias.
Yeah, I hear you.
So really like paring down and concentrating. And that really allows me to do better one-on-one work with people too, to just really focus on the people that show up.
Yeah.
So everything's there. Annual groups are there. And I have a newsletter. I send out a Sunday post. So I like, like something sacred in your inbox on Sunday morning. You can like drink your tea or coffee or and read my email if you want. So that's there too.
Perfect. And I will put the link to that, of course, in the show notes. So I'll go check that out. And if you are feeling the pull to use Sarah's work, go check her out, give her a ring, give her a ping. Yes, you have something else.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to conclude with when we're experiencing these issues, right? It often doesn't feel like this is a feminine masculine issue, right? It's like, could feel like a gendered issue, but we have these like traumas related to gender, and that it just is right now. We can heal that. But I just wanted to say that because I think when we're talking about feminine, masculine, people think that they're like maybe going to work with me and all we're going to talk about is feminine, masculine. And actually is like almost the last thing I bring in sometimes, because I'm like, this is just what's happening. With the feminine and the masculine that's trying to rebalance. And, we're looking at healing the traumas and what the behaviors are and the relational dynamics and all I just wanted to say that because I think sometimes it's like, where does this actually fit in my life? Right. And I promise you, it is ruling your life, whether or not you know it.
Yeah, exactly. Whether you know it or not, that's it. Exactly. No, thank you for that clarification. I think that's a good point to make. I do have one more question I ask that I like to ask everybody as a culminating question. What do you think is the most important thing you can do to live with purpose?
Such a near and dear question right now. I'll tie it to sacred remembering, that the listening to what your soul is saying. Listening to that hunch, listening to that inner guidance that really does know, and doing what it says. Yeah.
I can't leave that part out. Listening and actually honoring what it's saying. Yeah. That's an important distinction. I love that answer. So good. I resonate with that. And I think we could all benefit from listening to that a little bit more and doing what it says. Thank you so much, Sarah. Thanks for sharing your time and your energy and your expertise and your wisdom. This is such an important and powerful conversation. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.